Hey everyone, this is LYS from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Good day, everyone. I'm LYS and you're listening to EduSteps, the education podcast that helps young people and their families navigate life's biggest decisions. Festus, I hope you're enjoying this beautiful sun. A week ago, it was snowing. Now we're back to I won't say regularly scheduled program, but back to having some sun in the weather.
Yeah, man, it's Houston. This is the thing I love about Houston weather is it doesn't disappoint. You know what I'm saying? It's like a bucking bronco during Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. It's like, oh, what was that? Hey, how long can you hold on? You know what I'm saying? And then it's like super calm, and it's like, oh, such a pretty horse. You know what I'm saying? So 100%, I love it.
Absolutely. So, folks, it's the second month of the new year, and with it comes big questions for students and parents. Today, we're going to be diving into one of the most debated topics in education. Is college really worth it? For that, we've got an amazing guest here to break it down with us. As always, Jamar Crawford, a soon-to-be Dr. Crawford, is going to be bringing us academic perspective. What does the data say about the return on investment in higher education today? How you doing today, soon-to-be Dr. Jamar?
Hey, how y'all doing, man? Happy to be here with you guys.
Love it, absolutely. So, parents, students, and educators, this one's for you. Stick with us and don't forget to hit subscribe so you can stay ahead of the curve on the latest education trend. First thing we're going to be delving into in regards to the state of higher education in 2025 are rising costs versus the value of a degree. So when we look at the debt dilemma, the average student loan debt for graduates is about $37,000. With tuition rising higher than inflation, which is hard to believe, do we think students are overpaying for that piece of paper? When you factor in debt and opportunity costs, is the ROI still worth it for a lot of these young folks going to college? Guys, let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, only one of us teaches at the collegiate level, so
I think that certainly depends on what their goals are, the students' goals are. And so there are various answers to that. So if students know what they want to do or they have an idea, they can research. And once they research and kind of see what is the job outlook in that particular career, what is the income, the average income, across the United States or wherever their local area is, and they can use that information to make an informed decision for a more precise answer. Whereas someone who is going to school and major in the geographical studies of X, Y, and Z in college, right? And when they graduate, then their career or their job has nothing to do with that. Then in that type of case, they are basically not getting a good return on their investment. So I think it definitely depends on their goals and aspirations and true self-assessment. Are they a good student of academia, or not, So I think the answer varies.
yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say this is that college definitely isn't for everyone, but education is. And I think that's the thing. If you were to sit down and ask 10 people to give a definition of education, I highly, highly, highly doubt that even 70% of them, even 7 out of 10, would understand what an education is. Because most people have been indoctrinated. And in terms of indoctrination, it's not just the school indoctrinating you. As much as people want to go hard against colleges and public schools and, that's who's doing the indoctrination. It's anybody who has a vested interest in what they're taking from you. Okay? Anybody who has a vested interest in what they're taking from you is going to indoctrinate you. If you got a boyfriend or a girlfriend who wants certain things out of you, trust me, they're going to flip them lies. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to make the world seem a whole different shade of whatever to get what they're getting out of you. And that's the thing that most people don't understand is that when it comes to education, you have to first and foremost have a definition for yourself, and then you can know what you're going after, right? So if you're going after becoming X, Y, or Z, you need to know what type of education X, Y, or Z needs. Okay, and that's whether it's a college education, a trade school, if it's on the job training, if it's just a high school diploma. So when you really boil it down, there's only 6 different options that you have when you graduate from high school, right? And so we talk about those 6 all the time. Okay, it's going to college, going to trade school or technical school, which that could technically be 2, going to the military, starting a business, staying on your parents' couch, or getting some kind of on-the-job training, or like a plumber or something like that, some kind of apprenticeship. And so, and lastly, just going to work, just say, hey man, I'm just gonna go to work, and I'm gonna work whoever hires me. And so to me, I think whatever you desire is worth it to you.
I think those are 2 really, really good points. I also looked at, to your point, Festus, about indoctrination. Baby boomers built wealth through affordable college degrees. It was much easier. You could hear of people who could pay for college having, 2 jobs or something like that, during when baby boomers were of age in college. But for a lot of folks our age, millennials and Gen Z, that is nearly impossible. Unless the job that you had was as a CEO of a large company while you're in college, it'd be pretty hard to pay for college. So in regards to how easy it was for baby boomers to be able to pay for college, even Gen Xers, would you all say that we are failing this generation with that whole mindset of, yeah, if you just put on your bootstraps and you work really hard, you can pay for college on your own. It's a possibility. Is that part? I see themes of what you've mentioned, Festus, as far as that indoctrination mindset of, the world is your oyster. You can kind of go out there and get it if you work really hard, when no one really talks about a lot of the underlying advantages many people have to post-secondary education.
Yeah, I'll throw this out there. So if you look at the dates, baby boomers were in college between the late 1950s and 1980s. The only thing you have to really do, right, to do the math on why baby boomers were able to afford college back then to today is look at what has changed in that time period. Yes, there have been a bunch of technical advances. Yes, there's been, computers weren't even invented at the time that some of these baby boomers were in college, right? Or let me say available to the public. The government then had computers, but that's a whole nother thing. So when you look at that, right, and you say, well, what has changed? One of the number one things that changed is that colleges no longer provide just the education. They provide an environment. And so that environment is one of the things that drives up the cost of education. So if you're right now struggling, trying to figure out, okay, is college worth it for me or not? You should be asking, is the environment that school provides worth it for me or not? Because there are cheaper ways to get the same level of education, to get the same certification, same degrees, right? But some people, they want to go to the place with the rock wall, with the football team, with this, with that, and the third, right? And then some people are just like, hey man, I'm gonna go to Pensacola Christian. They got a little bit of stuff, but they're not fully invested in that stuff. I'm paid $2,000, $3,000 a year. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of people cry and moan and complain about the price of college, but it's the price of the college that you're willing to pay. You see what I'm saying? That's the thing that I don't think a lot of people are registering in their minds. Same thing with community college. Community college can be very well worth it, but the thing is, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to go over there, and there's a stigma attached to it. I think the stigma is changing a little bit, but you also have to look at between the late 50s and the late 80s, what has changed to increase the price of college? Well, we didn't have a Department of Education until the 1970s. Okay, I'm not advocating getting rid of the Department of Education. I'm just saying, what role did it play in the change in the rising price of college? Because part of it is thinking that everybody should go. And another big thing that came up was student loans. And so the thing is, before student loans became student loans, people were paying for college. It might have been a lot harder, right? But I bet that incentivized some institutions to say, hey, the loans are going to pay for it. We don't really have to worry about this kid and the outcome that they get. So I'll just throw that out there.
All right. Great perspective there. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about that's been really, really popular, I'd say in the last 5-10 years, are alternative paths, which are gaining ground. So you got things like trade schools and certification programs, which you mentioned earlier, Festus. These options offer quicker, cheaper routes to higher paying jobs without the debt. So should students reconsider the traditional 4-year degree and start looking at more alternative paths?
What you got, Dr. Crawford?
I think that again goes back to what their vision is, what's their purpose, whatever that decision that they come up with, so they can make those informed decisions. I feel like these topics are really, really good topics. And I think that when we have students who are okay, hey, I know that I want to grow up and be successful. I want to have a certain type of income, but I don't know how, I don't have that avenue. I don't know how I want to get there. And I think this is where these students need to just really equip themselves with information. So when we talk about trade schools or going to college in that route, okay, like earlier I talked about, okay, am I a person, knowing myself, self-assessment, am I a person that's good with academia, or I'm a person who loves to engage with things with my hands? If I'm a person that is more engaged with things with my hands, a trade school might be the best route for me, and I can go that route and just thrive and have, financial success if that's what I'm looking for. If my interest lies elsewhere with my hands, to where I have to get a college education, such as I want to be a surgeon, and that's doing something with my hands, well, that would require me to get that college education. And I think the biggest thing here is knowing yourself and knowing what it is that you truly want to attain. And I think that we have many students who do come straight from high school do not have that insight yet. And this is where it becomes harmful, to where I don't have the insight. I don't know what I want to do, but I know the thing to do is just go to school somewhere.
So go ahead. No, because I have a question for everyone based off of that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the big issue is kind of knowledge of self to a certain degree. Who am I? What am I doing here? What do I want to accomplish while I'm here? I think those are some basic questions that people need to address before they even talk about the price of tuition and things like that, right? But I think there's a duality in the fact that an education is supposed to help you discover more about yourself on your way to wherever it is you're going. And I think that's part of the dilemma is that if you don't know what you don't know. And so you don't know what you're paying for, especially you're talking to a first generation student. That's tough.
Yeah. So, and let's create a real life situation, because I know there's a lot of people who dealt with this in the last couple of years and will be dealing with this in the next couple of months as they leave high school. What if you have a student who is really talented, but they just can't afford college? Maybe they just started picking it up in the last couple months, or, they weren't privy to a lot of scholarships, grants, opportunities, fellows. And so, they have an opportunity to go to, the University of Texas. They've been accepted by the large public university or the large private university. And maybe they have half of their tuition that's being covered. So instead of paying, 40, 50, 60, they're paying 20, 30, 40. That's still $20, $30, $40,000 that's still going to be paid off with loans or grants or whatever. Would you recommend someone going into a program where maybe they're in school for 6 to 8, 12, 18, maybe 24 months, and they can come out making a decent amount of money? And by decent, I mean enough to function as an adult, to where they can maybe not go to the school that they wanted to, but still go to a school that offers a program that they want, and they can be able to afford more of it. So they're leaving without that heavy burden, which seems to hamper a lot of young people.
Yeah, what you're saying is a livable wage. Dr. Crawford, you wanna go in on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask him real quick to affirm the question for me.
Would you recommend someone, instead of going to a 4-year college, would you recommend them to do a 6 to 8 to 12 month or shorter program to make a livable wage so they could potentially go back to school
Got
as
you.
they make a little bit more money.
Got you. What I would personally do is I would talk about the avenue for both options and let them make that decision for themselves. So just like how you basically put it out there, okay, you want to go to school A to major in whatever you want to major in, but you have an opportunity to go to school B that is going to fund some of your schooling, and you're going to be able to graduate with less debt in the same career field. So I would give them those options. School A is more expensive within this field. You're going to leave and have more debt. School B, they're paying half of your college tuition or whatever the amount they're paying. You're going to graduate with less debt, get the same, be able to do whatever it is, or a certification, whatever it is, do whatever it is that you want to do to make your money. And then I'm going to give them that information and have them deduce what is the wise choice to make based on the information. So I would let them decide. What I don't want to do is tell them that, hey, you need to go here because it's teacher, but I mean cheaper. But I will present both options, give them the pros and the cons, because maybe this person is not where they need to be mentally and mature to be like, hey, well, I don't need to go to this popular college A just to see the end of the tunnel for my future. Because some people, when they're coming straight from high school, they're still in that young minded mentality to where, well, socialization is more important for me right now, right? So I'm definitely gonna address it and acknowledge it. And the goal will be that they come up with that thought themselves that, okay, it makes more sense for me to go to school B because I can actually make a better living by the time that I graduate versus me tell them. So hopefully the goal will be that I can get them to see that for themselves so it can be ownership and not me telling somebody what they should and shouldn't do.
Great point there, Crawford.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the thing is a lot of people are suckers, and I call them suckers because they're looking for a way out that they could blame other people for the decisions that they don't want to make. And so what I mean is that people don't want to go do the research, and then they could say, see, it's your fault. You told me to go here, or you told me to do that, versus them being educated, like Crawford said, them going through the process of actually doing the research, them saying, oh yeah, such and such told me, or I looked online and my friend went to that school and whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that's a sucker move. You know what I'm saying? I think, the real deal is people need to stand on business, do the research that they need to do in order to figure out where they're trying to go in their lives. And then, based off of where they're trying to go, then you could trace it back to what you need to do in order to get there.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad. Parents, prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because it's some good topics.
I understand that there's a lot of people who they're just not in those circles. You know what I'm saying? They're just not in that space where they have the help and they have the support. But that's part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing is to say, hey, look, the help and the support is out there, but you still have to do the work. That's the thing. You cannot be lazy in life. You can't let other people decide your outcome for you and then be mad at them when you didn't get what you wanted. well, you let them decide. So, I'll cap it right there.
And I can't speak to that on the topic that we're talking about real quick on a personal level and just being transparent. So I have a friend who started off in college. We didn't go to the same college. I know him through somebody else. But we're all in school at the same time, different colleges. And then at some point he stops going to college and got into the oil industry and start taking certain courses to get particular certifications. And immediately he saw financial gain and success. So he took that route and never looked back. So he was like, forget a degree, this is the route that I want to take. I just keep taking these particular courses, getting these certifications, and I'm gonna move up through the ranks in the oil industry, which definitely works for him. And he makes six figures and things of nature, doing really, really good for himself. And I used to look at that at those times because I'm like, man, I'm sitting here getting an education and I'm going this route. And I never was jealous or anything, but I did question, did I make the best decision that was for me? And the thing that's really important here, since we're talking about this, is because I am in getting a college education. I am acquiring debt. I am acquiring debt, but I see this person making this money. He was able to buy a house and all of these things. Now the trade-off is, here's the trade-off, that yes, he's making six figures, but the trade-off is it's a labor job. So he's out in the heat and he's dealing with these certain conditions. And he has to be away 2 to 3 weeks at a time, getting a week off, which is when he comes back and spend that time with his family and doing whatever it is that he want to do. Every week, he's either working 2 to 3 weeks every month. I'm sorry. He's working 2 to 3 weeks out the month. And the rest of that month, he's back doing whatever he want to do. And once that time is up, he goes back and travel and does what he do. So that's the con. And when I think about it, I was like, you know what? I made the best decision for me. Now I didn't make the money that he's making as soon as he made it, because he's been making that money and buying a house, and I see those things. But I'm like, at the end of the day, what I don't want to be doing is being outside working and doing that. Like, I don't want to do a later job. I want to get paid to use my mind, which is what I do. And so for him, that worked. But for me, I know that ain't what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? And he's fine with the money that he's making. But for me, I can say I'm not making that money, but I'm happy and passionate about what it is that I do. And I'm seeing that doors do open to where I could make that six figures. It just didn't come as quick as his did. Mine came in different ways because of my background and my degrees or whatever. I now have the opportunity to have as many jobs that I need to be, and I don't have to physically be there, and I can make that same type of income, which is how I'm able to make that type of income. But it's just really interesting, the two different paths and what works for people and what doesn't.
100%. I think that's the thing is, I remember back in the gap when I kind of made the decision to rely on my education more than my body. You know what I mean? And it was crazy because it was like, again, you outside in the heat, you struggling, and you're like, oh man, and yeah, I might be making good money, but
you got to stay off that corner, Festus.
I guess it's again labor jobs. And so to me, I think that just like you said is true, is are you you got people just have to decide for themselves.
Yeah, it was just interesting because it was still a great outcome. The person's doing wonderful and well and happy. And so it was just, I thought it was just cool with this topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to say some things, wrap it up. I love both of those points. And I was thinking back to what Festus was talking about, and it trickled down to when you were talking about as well, DeMarc. If you're talking to someone, because it was DeMarc that mentioned bringing out both of those perspectives, both of those options. And one of the things that came to my mind when you started saying that is, if they can't see the perspective of maybe taking a step back instead of accumulating that debt, because I know at 18, right, frontal lobe still forming, you don't understand the consequences of things like debt. I still remember my first credit card I got in college, completely messed that situation up, right? If they can't see that perspective, is it safe to say that maybe they shouldn't be in college right now? I know we've talked about gap years. Festus, you've mentioned gap years. You've been an advocate of gap years in the right circumstances. Maybe something else. Because, Crawford, you mentioned you got to make the most wise choice. What if a lot of these kids these days, especially these days, they're just not wise. They're not making wise decisions. And you have a lot of people who have the experience, who have the knowledge, who are coming back to communities where, it was tough for them and they left and they went and did great things and they're trying to come back and help. And a lot of kids just aren't really trying to listen to that. They've got their mindset on going and doing this particular thing, doing that particular, going to that particular school. I can only afford this much. I'll take the loan. You're on your own. What will it cost you to take a program, get a job for a little bit, or take this program, get this on the job training? It may take 6 to 8 months, but you're going to be making what, you're going to have a livable wage. You'll be living at home. Yes. Will you have to listen to your mom still yell at you? Your dad still ask you to do this and do that? Yes. But if I could go back, we talked about the opportunity cost. Is the cost of having my parents be my parents, does that weigh more than an average of $37,000 of student loan debt, which many college graduates have? That's average. So guess what that means? That means there's a lot of people who have more than 37,000. There's some that have less than 37, but the majority of people are going to be right around $37,000. So is it worth it, right? That was kind of where my thought went in that regard.
Festus, before you respond, I want to say that boy Olay getting cold with them segues, boy. The way he finessed that and went to the next topic, that boy a beast. That boy a beast at that. Okay, I see you. Host, you're doing your thing. I just wanted to praise you real quick. My bad,
I appreciate it. We're 2 years in. I had to learn something by now.
100%. I think you brought up a good point about people and how long they're going to be in their parents' house and those different types of things. I think the real thing is not, are you in your parents' house? It's when and if you leave, do you have to come back? And it's different if you're coming back as a person who, hey man, I'm financially fit. I know what I want to do. But maybe again, just cost of living is in such a way that, and even your parents' situations in such a way that it's best for me to come home now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that there's a lot of different factors there. So I'm not knocking anybody for staying with their parents. But what I am knocking is people who don't try, right? And then, want to cry. That I'm knocking. The next thing I'll semi-knock, I'm not fully knocking it, but is where, again, people don't count the cost as they step into whatever lane that they step into. And what I mean by that is, are you talking to people who's in that lane? Are you spending time with people who are in that lane? That to me would be the bottom action that I would take is find 3 to 5 people in that lane on LinkedIn, either invite them to coffee, go shadow them, go wash their car, go do something so you could be around those people. Because if somebody came to me right now and said, Festus, let me wash your car for some info, I'd be like, here are the keys. You know what I'm saying? Go do it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not something I really want to do in my free time. You know what I'm saying? But
that sounded like something strange for some change.
Hey, look, when you don't have that much to offer in terms of skill, in terms of, you know what I'm saying? And that's the sad part, because somebody who really wants to take advantage of you will make you do something strange to change. But that's a whole nother thing. You know what I'm saying? But if you got to go clean out somebody's garage, you got to go throw some trash, whatever you need to do to be around that person, you probably want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because that way you don't end up having to do it forever. You know what I'm saying? So on that point, I think the real thing in terms of the cost of college that is not calculable, this part you cannot calculate, is who you're going to meet and where they're going to go in life. And I think those two factors are actually the biggest factors that will keep college alive, because college campuses are the only environment that brings people together who have common intellectual aspirations and pursuits and puts them around people who have accomplished in that area of academia, right? Now, some of those people have practical knowledge. And that's one thing a lot of universities are doing. They're trying to hire people to come in and work with professors who can tie together, hey, I got the practical knowledge, you got the academic knowledge, right? This is why I'm a big proponent of community colleges, because a lot of these community colleges, you have people who have done it in real life and who are teaching at night school, or who are, who they're coming back and, their adjunct professor is their second job. So that I'm a big proponent of, you know what I mean? But I think that's the big thing that people really have to ask themselves, because I just know this from my university experience, is what my university friends are doing now versus everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And other people, some people I went to high school with, whatnot, and just people, you met in the street. And it's like, it's interesting. Well, one of my university friends, he was like, yo, Uber's about to do XYZ. I'm like, huh? And then it's like, what? I missed that investment, because they made a pivot and he got hip to that early. So the thing is, it puts you in different circles when you have that interest, but you also have to keep and maintain those relationships. And I think that's another thing that a lot of minorities might not, some people go to college with a chip on their shoulder. You know what I'm saying? I'm here, y'all ain't like me, y'all ain't never had it rough, and all this other stuff. And instead of meeting people, they're rubbing people all kind of the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's going to happen wherever you go if you're that type of person or you had that type of attitude. So, that's neither here nor there. But to me, I think that's the real question people should be asking themselves. And I think you brought it up earlier, Ole. Why do we call it laddering your success? The whole point of the ladder is to take a step-by-step approach. So your first step might be a gap year. Your first step might be community college. Your first step might be dual credit while you're in high school. Your first step might be summer jobs and some kind of summer mentoring program. Your first step might be, some kind of mastermind meetup. Your first step, there's a bunch of ways to take your first step, but our thing is take the first step. And then after you take that first step, continue to take steps towards success, i.e., that's why the podcast is called Edgy Steps.
Great point. Absolutely. I love that. Very, very good. Thank you all.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. If there's one thing I love, it's something free. I'm talking free 99, un gratis. No shipping or handling fees, no gotcha fees, nothing like that. With that being said, if you're graduating soon or thinking about college or need a nudge or help to decide, then our free ebook, 10 Things to Think About Before Going to College, has a very balanced and open-minded way of presenting your next steps. It captures broad topics in a personal way by giving students an insightful, interactive, and reflective source of inspiration. It is very beneficial to be able to visualize some of the concepts after high school and apply them directly to you. We all know life, college, and career planning decision-making choices for students can be challenging, especially as they near the completion of high school. This book will provide you with a self-paced guide to your success beyond academics and into real life. Not only is it free, you can complete this book within a week. This will definitely prepare you for long-term success. To get your free copy, simply go to lys.com/students. I mentioned it was free, right? Well, if I didn't, it's free. Like, for real. Okay, back to the podcast.
Let's talk about this degrees versus skills. Because this is a huge thing that's been happening as of recent. One of the things I love talking about is Coursera. For those of you who don't know, Coursera is a website that gives access to college level courses, trainings, certificates, just short courses, and just a variety of so many things, from cybersecurity to history to religion to politics to the body and anatomy. Many of them are free. Many of them are from well-known universities. I'm talking about University of Florida, Duke University, North Carolina, Stanford, all over the place. And so just want to go over a couple things here. According to LinkedIn, you got about 75%, so 75 out of 100 employers, they prioritized skills and experience over degrees. Some studies from McKinsey, they predict that by 2030, non-traditional credentials like boot camps, certificates, and online courses are going to outweigh traditional degrees in many industries. Despite skills first narrative, 91% of job postings for well-paying jobs still list a degree requirement. So right now, people still look for a degree for many of these jobs, but at the same time, you have this push for a lot of these certificates, these boot camps and things like that. And then you also have to think about folks who work in a particular degree, who have a degree and are working in something that has nothing to do with their degree plan. I remember when we first started Laddering Your Success, the number was around 54% or something like that. Right now, it's 41%. So it's gone down, but it's still close to half. 41% of recent grads are underemployed, working in jobs that don't require a degree. And then you have to think about what the bigger large companies are doing. Companies like Google and Apple no longer require degrees for many of their roles. So between that and things like alternatives to traditional college, like we talked about, where careers in HVAC, plumbing, electrical work are booming, so much so that the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, is predicting a 10% job growth in those fields over the next decade. Platforms like Coursera, which I've mentioned, Udemy, and Google Career Certificates are redefining what it means to get an education. And people are still going to the military. People are still having gap years. So with student loan debt being what it is, with wages being what they are, and I remember reading another survey that said many employers, so the number of employers who were going to give raises this year was actually going to be going down, right? So the number of employees or managers that were going to be given degrees was actually going down. So with student loan debt being what it is, with the wages being what they are for many grads, and with employers who are giving more value to skills over degrees, do we still think that traditional college is still the best? Is it still the best path to success? Or would you give more value, more weight to the alternatives like trade schools, online certifications, the Coursera's, military service, entre programs, which maybe offer a little bit more value, especially for students from different backgrounds? So we're talking about different socioeconomic backgrounds, right? Would you recommend that? Would we say that still go to college? It's still going to be your best path forward? Or would you say, hey, look at this boot camp, look at this course here. You're going to start off making this amount of money. Are you trying to go to the military? Go to the military. The Montgomery GI Bill is going to be great for you. It's going to help you with your house. It's going to help you with this. It's going to help you with that. Especially looking at young people coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on that.
So as a veteran, I'm pro military service. I think that military service for a lot of first gens gives them the discipline, gives them the income, gives them the stability that they might desperately need, depending on how bad their environment was coming out of, just coming out of high school. I think the dilemma with military service is, again, in any situation, what are people getting out of you? And I think that's the big thing, is you have to really ask yourself, as the person who's going to put your life on the line for the country, is it worth it? You know what I'm saying? And not everybody who goes into the service is going to go to war, and war has changed drastically. Now people don't want to take, military and send them across seas to go kill each other. Now it's cyber attacks. Now it's taking cyber attacks and hitting massive businesses that infrastructure is required to run the country. So war fighting's definitely changed, so those are things to take into consideration, because I know some people are like, man, Putin, I'm not trying to go to Russia, what I'm saying? But that's not necessarily the case in the same way as it might have been even 20 years ago. But I think also that in terms of building skills versus getting degrees, it really comes down to the person, because A certification can say you have this skill or you have this amount of knowledge. But at the end of the day, there are people who are better at things than other people. So you could go get two different people and say, hey, I need you to paint this room. And one person could be better at that other person. And some of it is done through repetition and experience. It's also done based off of who you learn from. So to me, I think those are different factors people need to take into consideration. Like, hey, I know I want to go get that piece of paper, whatever that piece of paper is. But I think people also have to consider, like, who am I learning from? How long have they done this? What feedback are they giving me? And how much practice can I get? You know what I mean? Because again, that's one way to raise and increase your value, and which drives raises. This is the thing that nobody wants to talk about. What's going to get you a raise on the job is going to be two different things: who likes you and who knows you're good at what you do. So this is the thing. There could be a situation where people don't like you, but you're so good at it that they got to keep you around. Are they giving you a bunch of raises? Maybe not, but they got to keep you around. So when they're laying off people, they're like, nah, such and such, they're so good at what they do, we wouldn't be able to make it without them. Now, there's another side where somebody could like you and you could be good at what you're doing. That's the sweet spot, because now it's like, man, I like this person. You know what? Let's go and give them another 5K on there. You know what I'm saying? And that's the actual sweet spot you want to be in, right? But you want to be there with people who are your purpose with, that's meaningful to you, because that's what helps you to grow and develop ultimately.
All right. So there's so much on this topic. Like this whole time when I was listening, I'm just thinking how to attack it, because which angle to communicate my thoughts, because it was so much that went into it. And I think that the first thing we have to do is, when we're comparing and seeing which one is the best route, a certification or skills versus getting a degree, is what is the purpose of a degree? The purpose of a college degree is proof of knowledge in that particular field and the ability in general to continuously learn. And so when we think about income and a college education or a college degree versus a certificate, speaking generally, the college education has been viewed as the safe route. The reason why college education has been viewed as a safe route is because generally, I know that what Festus was talking about, I feel like there were variables, but when I generalize it, and when you look at the levels of education, whether it's less than high school diploma, then high school diploma, and then a bachelor's degree, and then a little bit more than a bachelor's degree, then a master's or a professional certification or a doctor's degree, so on and so forth. When you look at the income, the amount of income that you make with more education does increase. Now, does that guarantee that you're going to make that income? It does not guarantee that's going to make that income, but generally speaking, the more education you have, the more income that you are able to make. Now, when it comes to people who get professional certificates, they do tend to make, so you have professional certificates and you have doctorate degrees that are the highest income when we're talking about levels of education. They out income everybody, but that's generally speaking. Where you have outliers. Outliers are situations and circumstances to where I went to trade school, I became a plumber, and I learned that skill, and I was so good at that skill that, and I had the soft skills, the interpersonal skills, which means for the listeners that I'm good with people. So I have the hard skills in plumbing, and I have the soft skills to go along with it, to where I created my own business and I make so much money, right? That's an outlier situation. Not everybody can do that, you know? So I feel like in general, it seems safe for people to get a college education. Now, the problem with that is that they're picking a safe route that is not speaking to them as a person, because they haven't identified themselves and who they are. Where when I was listening to Festus and he was like, he's pro-military, where you can go and get certain discipline, been in that environment, and then they can have a more sense of self. Okay, I feel like I'm disciplined, that I can go to get this college education, or nah, man, I learned from the military. I'm better off doing things physical. I can go get this trade. So when we are looking at that, generally speaking, the more education you get, the more income you are able to make. But that is not set in stone that you will make that. And I think that's a big misconception. You know what I mean? And then I know you talked about the value of a degree versus certificates, because employers, based on what you said, employers prefer, I think 75% prefer people with those skills, which is absolutely true. But the thing is, here, when we get that certification, then you have someone that has a degree. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, because I I don't have a bias in that, but I can look at what a certificate says is, hey, I completed this amount of hours. I should have the skills to do that. That's proof. And then a college degree is also another form of proof. So you have two different types of form of proof of people should have the ability to do something. Now, when we're looking at a particular skill, if this guy has a certificate in whatever they're doing, but you have this person who has a general degree, I can most definitely see how the employer is going to favor that person that has a certificate in that specific skill to do what they need this person to do. Because that proof, knowledge, or skills in that area holds more weight than a general degree, if that makes sense. Which is why it's real important for us to become more aware of ourselves, so we don't get into a situation, I'm going to college because based on the general note that the more education you get, the more income I can make. And so I don't know what I want to major in. So I'm going to major in statistical, geological, whatever. And I get that degree, but then I can't get any job with that. So again, we really have to make informed decisions, and that could determine the best outcome specifically for each individual.
I love the point there about being able to make sure you think the way you described it was just being able to know the background, and whichever option this person picks, are they going to be able to handle it?
And essentially risk versus reward, because I said
Mhm.
college education is safe, whereas you can be successful in many other routes, but there are risks, like being an entrepreneur. Everybody thinks about the rewards of being an entrepreneur, but there's a lot of risk in entrepreneurship and other avenues as well.
Absolutely.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
So one of the things I thought about, and there was a lot that I wanted us to get in. And so I'm going to throw this in here, and I'm going to use this as sort of my 2 cents in that, in regards to the question. One of the things I wanted us to go over, but because for time we didn't have a chance to, was education or privilege. So some of the stats we looked up said students from higher income families are 6 times more likely to graduate from college than those from low income backgrounds. Also, college graduates from wealthy families accumulate more wealth post-college, while those from lower income families struggle to repay loans. Black and Hispanic students are more likely to borrow large amounts and less likely to graduate compared to their white and Asian counterparts. So when I thought about that question, one of the things that I thought about was this. If you're playing Monopoly and you have a lot of money, you don't want to lose the money. right? You don't want to collect all of these properties and then slowly start to lose your money. So I think there's this thing that we have in our head that we have from a behavior standpoint, where when we see folks who are doing well and they're in college and they say things like, I'm going to take over my dad's business once I get this degree. I think the natural reaction for us is to say, man, rich guy's son, rich guy's daughter just taking over the company. And to that, I say, yeah, because in that game, you don't want to lose your money. And I think we've kind of had this thing where it's like, because they're rich, we feel that somehow they should, when bad things, I heard someone talking about with the fires in California, a lot of very wealthy folks, a lot of famous people have lost their houses, unfortunately. And some people are like, shows them right, losing their home. And I'm thinking to myself, so because they have money, you're happy they lost their house? And granted, they may have inherited that money. Some of them worked really hard. Some of them came from the bottom up and got their money. But we kind of have to get out of that mindset, and we kind of just have to look at our own situation and what's best for us. So that's why I said I love what you all said in regards to that. The second question that I asked myself was, would I rather have someone who works in their purpose or their passion, or someone who has a degree in a particular field in 2025? And I thought about that in regards to some of the things I see on a daily basis in my job. And I was asking folks, I said, why do folks go to school and they get this doctorate? Because I was fortunate enough to get a certificate in the field of what I do. And I try to study, as much as I can. I'm always trying to stay on top of new things and new modalities, methodologies, resources, things like this. And we'll go in and I'll work with someone and they'll say, oh man, you guys did better than these folks who went to school for all these years. And I remember I was working with someone on Friday and I stayed a lot later than I was supposed to. And it was because I loved what I was doing. And so I wondered, I said, would I rather have someone who works in their passion or their purpose, or someone who has that classical kind of learning? And here's the truth. If you've got someone who's working in their purpose, working in their passion, there's enough resources today to get access to that classical education, right? There are enough resources to get as much access to that classical education. Festus mentioned it. If you know folks who work in a particular field that you're excited about or you're really passionate about, you can go in, you can talk to those folks. And that's not to say that you're not going to go to a community college. You're not going to go and get a base level understanding of what you need to be able to do the job. I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. To do the job, we'll just say classically, as it has been classically designed to be done. And so I think, to your point, me personally, I would, if I saw the passion, if I saw that they were as energized, if they were very, very energized to do this work, to do this job, I would find lots of value in that. I think every situation, it depends, but I think the gist of what I'm trying to say is, there are plenty of opportunities, there are plenty of sources, there are plenty of avenues, pathways to where you don't have to incur that debt. Not to say that you're never going to go to college, but you have to think about not just your future, but your children's future and your children's children's future. And I think that's one of those things that we have to pay close attention to. Last thing I'll say is, remember that we saw something there about, gosh, I can't remember what it was. Oh gosh, it left my mind. But I'm gonna leave it open for you guys, and hopefully if I remember, it'll come back to me. And I apologize because I know I said a lot there. I hope I wasn't going around in circles.
No, I definitely think you rounded it out well. I think right now the big thing for us all to consider in this time is what works well for us. I think you made a point too about people being taught to hate the rich or be mad at the rich or things like that. without actually encountering them. I think sometimes what that does inevitably is it puts in our minds that we can't accomplish much, right? And therefore we don't set out to accomplish X, Y, or Z. So if you say, hey man, I hate rich people, intrinsically what you're saying is I also do not want to become rich. It's included in that statement, right?
Beautiful.
Otherwise,
Wonderfully said, yeah.
yeah, otherwise I hate myself. It's included in that statement. So I think the thing is there are evil people who are doing evil things to get money. You know what I mean? But I think you also have to consider that our job and our role here is, in terms of here on earth as human beings, is to a large degree to serve one another and solve problems. And so if you're not serving anybody, if you're not solving any problems, you're going to be poor. That's what comes with life, right? It could be, and I know somebody is probably, this is hurting somebody's feelings, but you might need to hear this. It could be you are the problem and you suck up services and you're not a producer of anything of value. And that's why you are poor. It could be that. A lot of people want to point to 1,000 other things, but it could be that. And so you have to ask yourself some questions. Who am I serving? What problems am I solving? How hard am I working? Am I working smart, or am I just using my labor? Am I around the right people? Those are some questions you really have to ask yourself, because at least for me personally, what I found is I had to ask those tough questions to myself. And I'd say, man, even though I'm working hard, I'm not working as smart as I can, or even though I'm working hard, some of my bad habits are eating away my ability to move forward materially, right? So, if I'm going to the club, and now most clubs are free to get in, but back in the Gap, you know what I mean? It was $20 at the door, $30 at the door, so much more if you want a VIP, but we had to hook up, shout out to MC Quay and them, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, when I sat down and started doing the calculations and say, wait a second, okay, I'm going out 3-4 times a week. I'm spending $20 each time to get in. I'm getting drinks. And you start doing the math and you're saying, wait a second, I'm spending $400 or $500 a month clubbing and partying and being mad at other people. Then I'm mad at other people for my situation. That's on me. That has nothing to do with them. And so sometimes you have to do that calculus, particularly when it comes to your education. When you're on campus, are you drinking? Are you going to parties all the time? Because some people had this American pie mentality and experience. And the reality is you do what you can afford. A lot of people think you could afford to do that. And really you don't got the gas in the tank to do that. So sometimes you got to let people slide and let them do them. You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, yeah, we cool, whatever, but I'm going to be at the library while y'all go to the party because I just have different aspirations. So I think we could close out there unless somebody has some other closing remarks.
I think that one of the things that Ole was talking about just recently that stood out to me was him preferring to hire someone for passion over a degree or something like that. And one of the things that I thought about was that I understand exactly what he's talking about, because someone who's passionate about the job or operating their passion, there's resources out there that they can learn the things necessary to be successful and great. But another side to it that I just want to put out there is that I think because of self-preservation, you don't know if that passion within the interview is genuine or not. Because I need a job, I could put on the fakest passion in the world, and now you're stuck with someone who does not have genuine passion, and as well don't have the skills. And I think for people who are hiring people, I feel like maybe they look at it as it's more safe to hire somebody who has said degree or said certificate versus someone over passion. But I see both sides what you were saying, because seeing you speaking for yourself and what you said, your experience with working with your customers, you're clearly one of the persons who are passionate, and you are a jewel because of your passion, that you're willing to seek the information. How can I better serve my customers? How can I better make this business that I'm a part of grow? But not everybody has that in mind. Everybody has, I need to look out for myself. I need this job. What can I tell them what they want to hear? so I can just secure this bag. So that was just a thought I had.
Great perspective. Absolutely. Totally agree. All right, folks. A huge shout out, as always, to the future Dr. Jamark for his insights today. As always, thank you, Festus. Folks, here's your next step. If you're in high school, research one alternative to college this week, whether it's a trade school, an online certification, or an internship. Remember, knowledge is power. Parents, start the conversation with your teen about their goals and where the college is the best fit for them. If you found this episode helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with a friend. Please leave us a review. The only way we can make this better to help you is for you to tell us what you need from us. Your engagement helps us grow and support more students and families. Until next time, folks, this is Ole Sharanki reminding you success isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep climbing that ladder to success. Festus, go ahead and give us a phrase that pays, my good sir.
So listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. Again, hit that subscribe button and hit that share button with somebody who needs to hear this. We are going to see you on the next episode.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.